This is CBS News America Decides Election 2025. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. It is 11 p.m. on the East Coast, and polls just closed in California, where voters are deciding whether to redraw their congressional maps, and we already have a projection. CBS News projects that yes on Proposition 50 will prevail in California. I want to go to CBS News Elections and Surveys Director Anthony Salvanto to explain to us what we know about that projection. Anthony.
Fast enough for you, Major?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Like it couldn't have been faster.
It literally
It simply could not have been faster, Anthony.
Right there. Look, I'm going to keep this real simple, right? For all the fancy models we've been running all night, this thing has a 24-point lead in the exit poll. We've been talking to voters. That is what they tell us. The Democrats are voting overwhelmingly for this. And even the advance vote itself was 52% Democratic. So that's a projection. That's the reason why. But I do want to show you this, because we have been looking all night at the Trump factor here, and it's really dominant in Prop 50. For people who voted yes, 80% of them said one reason was to oppose President Trump. So it's a nationalized election. Yeah, it's about redistricting, but it's also, especially in the minds of Democrats in California, it's also a lot about the president, Major.
Anthony, you know that sometimes I can ask pesky and annoying questions, so here's one. In 2010, when California voters were asked about creating this independent bipartisan commission on redistricting, that passed with 61% of the vote. Do we have any sense, and I know it is unbelievably early in the process to ask you this pesky and annoying question, do we have any sense of whether the vote, when it's all counted in California, could be at or near 61%?
Our pre-election polling had it around that. The exit poll has it around that. It could very well hit around 60%. That's the first answer to your question. But you echo back to that proposition back in 2010, there's still echoes of that. When we asked in the exit poll, who's handling redistricting fairly? The top answer was neither party. So this is, in the eyes of Californians, a response. But there still is that underlying desire, and we see this nationally, for districts that are more competitive. Voters want competitive districts, but there's this partisan back and forth. This is the first time we've seen voters be able to weigh in on this process. Everywhere else is being done by legislatures and governors, and there still is that sense of fairness there, Major.
It applies in hockey and also at the data desk. That was a kick, save, and a beauty. And Anthony Salvanto, thank you. Correspondent Nidia Cavazos is in California, Sacramento specifically. Nidia.
Major, it's a win for Proposition 50 supporters, and it's a win for Governor Gavin Newsom, who, as we know, steered this campaign, and it is also somebody who we're watching for a potential 2028 presidential run. So this is nonetheless victorious night for him, and we are awaiting remarks from Newsom shortly now that the voting centers have closed. But now that Proposition 50 has gone through, this was the only item on the ballot for Californians, and it was asking voters to choose either yes or no if they were okay with amending the state's constitution so that they can put aside the current congressional boundaries that were drawn by an independent redistricting commission and instead adopt the new maps that were recently redrawn by Democrats to benefit their chances come next year during the 2026 midterm elections. And so these maps, the way they've been drawn is that they've been targeting 5 Republican districts in boosting Democratic chances. But it's also important to note here that there are still 2 of these districts that are still going to be in play for Republicans. So it's a matter of seeing how voters are going to turn out next year, how they're going to vote, and to determine if this, in fact, is successful. Now, Governor Gavin Newsom has said that this was all in direct response to what Texas did. He had been warning that if Texas went forward with their redistricting efforts after President Trump pushed for this, then he would counter, and he would often say that he wasn't willing to stand back, and he was asking his supporters to stand up to President Trump. And of course, as I've mentioned, over the past 2.5 months, we've been listening to field organizers, to Proposition 50 supporters trying to court voters by presenting Proposition 50 as a referendum on President Trump. They would pitch to voters, ask them, have you been dissatisfied with what you've seen during the past months? And if the answer is yes, then vote yes on Proposition 50. Now, when we spoke to Democratic voters, we were hearing a wide array of opinions. Some of them weren't for redistricting, but they said if this is a vote against Donald Trump, then we will go forward with Proposition 50.
Nidia Cavazos, thank you so very much. CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns at the exit poll big screen. Tell us what you know about California.
Major, I think a big story about this proposition, this ballot measure, is the issue of principle and politics. Here, we're seeing politics win out over principle because in our exit polling, a vast majority of Californians say, or those who voted today say that they want an independent, nonpartisan commission to draw those maps, but they also are saying that which party controls Congress is most important. So yes, they would prefer to have a nonpartisan map, but on the other hand, who controls Congress is the most important. And take a look at this. The vast majority said that they are voting in favor of this measure to counter Republicans in other states. So we are looking at this nationalization of a very local issue, or what had been a local issue, what your state maps look like. Now, in the bigger puzzle of the national campaign to redraw the maps essentially everywhere, this is what Democrats in California are saying, that they are hoping that this is an effort to balance the redistricting that we've seen by Republicans in other areas.